It's hard to sum Jess up really, just in a few words. To most people, she was remembered for her supreme kindness, and she was really gentle and caring, and she loved travel, so she would make little travel itineraries for herself. She was very bright. She worked as a satellite engineer. She was a radio frequency engineer, so helped design satellites for a living. As a tribute to Jess, which actually coincided on the morning of her funeral, the last satellite that she worked on was dedicated to her, and it actually had the words, "Thank you, Jess," when it was launched into space. I think it was about the June of 2020, Jess had been experiencing some abdominal pain. She contacted her GP practice, and through a remote consultation, she was diagnosed with a UTI infection. This was without a physical examination or without providing a urine sample. And although she had antibiotics and she seemed a bit better and the abdominal pain eased, Jess from then on was increasingly fatigued. She developed a persistent cough and she began to speak in a whispered voice because talking in her usual voice aggravated her throat and chest. I think from the June through to the autumn, she contacted her GP practice on 20 occasions. She was finding it really difficult to advocate for herself. She felt like a problem patient, really, at the GP surgery. It was quite distressing for her because she would say that she did know her body and that things weren't right. She had a very healthy diet, she didn't smoke and she didn't drink, and she exercised regularly. So during those 20 contacts with the GP, 6 different doctors consulted with Jess, and she was prescribed 6 lots of antibiotics, steroids, nasal sprays. She was suffering from night sweats. She would vomit in the morning. She had noticeable weight loss and she was utterly exhausted. She was on one occasion told to go to A&E for a chest x-ray. Some bloods were taken and she was found to have a raised D-dimer. And from that result, she was given a scan. And the scan showed she had an enlarged heart. It was decided that there was no real cause for concern, but her health did not improve. The conclusion following on from Jess's symptoms, which was really a persistent cough, post-nasal drip, weight loss, night sweats, fevers, enlarged lymph nodes, was that she was suffering from long COVID. However, Jess had never tested positively from COVID despite repeated COVID tests. The diagnosis was unsubstantiated, but that was the conclusion really from fairly early on. And I think Jess was probably initially quite pleased to have an explanation for why she was so unwell, but increasingly I think she knew that it was beyond the expectation of the diagnosis of long COVID. By the end of October, I was increasingly worried about her, was actually beginning to wonder if there was something underlying like cancer. It was at the end of October that Jess had one of her permitted 3 of the 3 face-to-face consultations she had, and I was able to go with her. We did ask for a referral during that appointment. That wasn't granted. After that appointment, I did write to her GP practice saying that I was really, really concerned about Jess's deteriorating health and escalating symptoms, and we then made the decision to seek a private referral. It was from that private referral to an ear, nose and throat specialist that Jess had a biopsy of her lymph nodes, which had come very enlarged. And during an outpatient's appointment on the 26th of November, she was diagnosed with secondary cancer in her lymph nodes. From that appointment, Jess was admitted into hospital because her breathing at night was very rapid and noisy. It was the following day she was diagnosed with stage 4 adenocarcinoma, cancer of an unknown primary. Jess's cancer was rife. It had spread throughout her body, was not only in her lymph nodes, but was in her spine, her bones, her liver, her lungs. So she was incredibly poorly. Jess's rule is if a patient goes back to a GP on the third occasion and their symptoms are not improving or are they escalating, then a review should really take place. So the tagline for it is 3 strikes and we rethink. And that rethink may take different forms. So it might be consulting with a primary care colleague. It might be referring for diagnostics in secondary care. It might be if that patient has been seen remotely, they are then brought in for a face-to-face appointment and a physical examination. At that point, continuity of care is actioned so that this patient is seeing the same person. But I think the key message for Jess's rule is that we need to rethink again. We need to go back and look again and think, what did we think? Why did we think that? What else could it be? In medical training, it used to be 3 strikes and you're in. So 3 strikes and you've come back to the doctors on the third occasion and you'd be referred into the system, into secondary care. Jess's rule is a little bit more nuanced than that. It might not be an automatic referral into secondary care because we want to make sure that the referral is for the right place. And we don't want just a box-ticking exercise and to clog up the system. The 3 strikes and we rethink came from sort of old school teaching. We've had huge support for Jess's rule because Jess's rule is not set just to support people in diagnosing cancer earlier. So Endometriosis UK, the Grace Kelly Cancer Trust, Brain Tumour UK, and the Dental Association are just a few of the many people that have put out there that they're supporting Jess's rule and welcoming it.